All right, it's time that we talk about pay period 10 for 2023. This is a period that ended on March the 4th. And I'm going to focus a little bit on parking. Parking at the truck stops in particular, and not parking like a jackwagon. And at the end, I'm going to talk a little about parking because, this has been an ongoing subject that a lot of people have ranted about. Let's talk about it. Coming up. In this portion of the video, I'm going to be talking about the TA Travel Center in Terrell, Texas. When we look in Trucker Path, we can see that there are 300 free spots plus some paid spots at this particular location. Trucker Path also has a tool where drivers report how many open spaces there are. They report whether there are many, some, or none. As you can see, this location does not fill up most days. Now, if a location doesn't fill up solid, especially around 5 a.m., why would someone want to park like a jackwagon? Let's take a look at all the truck drivers that are inconvenienced by this one inconsiderate driver as we watch after he pulls in and parks in the aisle, blocking the turn. If for some reason you poorly planned and you did not have a space reserved or you did not know where you were going to park and you have to create a space, be considerate. Get up, set an alarm, get up, move your truck. Don't leave it sit there for 10 hours, causing people for hours and hours to have to work their way around your truck. It's not exactly making people's job easier.
But you know how it go when you living on the hope of your past life. And I feel I can't take it no more. No, I can't keep up, it's just never enough. Life just keeps on giving me detours. It never lets up, always switching it up. These days, life's been a freeway. Time just keeps flying and I can't keep up. And they say I need to face things. I say I'm trying, but it's not enough. These days, life's been a freeway. Time just keeps flying and I can't keep up. And they say I need to face things. I say I'm trying, but it's not enough. My life's a rotary circle all around about. Every time I try to exit, I find myself right back where I started out. It's not about the cards I've been dealt. I've been playing my hand, I just don't understand. Guess that I should quit while I'm down. Gave it all that I can. Took my heart and ran it over. These days, life's been a freeway. Time just keeps flying and I can't keep up. And they say I need to face things. I say I'm trying, but it's not enough. These days, life's been a freeway. Time just keeps flying and I can't keep up. And they say I need to face things. I say I'm trying, but it's not enough. I'm getting older, so are people around me. The tide it don't let up. I feel I'm surrounded. I'm getting older, so are people around me. The tide it don't let up. Feel I'm surrounded. I'm getting older, so are people around me. The tide it don't let up. I feel I'm surrounded. I'm getting older, so are people around me. The tide it don't let up. Feel I'm surrounded.
Drivers are quick to say that we have a parking problem for trucks in the United States. Do we really have a parking problem, or do we have a problem that everybody wants to shut down at the same time and are lazy on planning? Sometimes you're driving down the road, everything is going fine, and all of a sudden your pre-pass beeps red. We all know what that means. It means you got to go into the scale. When you pull into the scale house and thinking, okay, it's a bypass, no big deal, just going to cruise through the bypass, we'll be out here in a second. But the officer waves you over to the scale, has you go through the scale, pull over there so he can do a level 2 inspection. It's okay, I passed, free $50 from the company, but it just takes so much time. Time to take a look at the logs. This week started out, my first day I was on home time, and the remaining part of the week I was working. I had 3,499 dispatch miles, 3,562 logged miles, 3,558 odometer miles. The thing to note is the miles per hour. That miles per hour is determined by taking the miles traveled that day divided by the numbers of hours on driveline. So that is my net miles per hour. I may have been driving 68 miles an hour or 70 miles an hour, but I only achieve 60 or 61 or 66 due to lower speed limits in cities and places like that. Taking a look at my unedited pay statement for period number 10 of 2023, this is the period that ended on March the 4th. This first load started out where I deadheaded from Shadydale, Georgia to Lithia Springs, Georgia. I picked up a full truckload that went from Lithia Springs to Fort Recovery, Ohio. That load paid $433 for 649 miles, or 66.6 cents per mile. Second load for the week was another full truckload that went from Fort Recovery, Ohio to Laredo, Texas. That was $1,054 for 1,446 miles, 72.9 cents per mile. I had a full truckload that went from Laredo, Texas to Greencastle, Indiana, and then I went empty from Greencastle, Indiana to Newcastle, Indiana. That load paid $932 for 1,402 miles, 66.7 cents per mile. On this statement, there's also where I bought $20.63 worth of placards for my trailer, and I got paid $50 for having a clean DOT inspection. This week's summary box, $54 in detention pay, $123 empty miles, $57 for hazmat miles, $2,111 in loaded miles, $74 stop pay, $24.20 total pay, $34.99 miles, 69.1 cents per mile. Taking a look at the home time so far this year. In January, I worked 21 days. I was home for 5 days, off on the road 5 days. February, I worked 20 days, was home for 7 days, and had 1 day off on the road. So far in March, there were only 4 days. I worked all 4 of them. Year to date, there have been 10 weeks through this pay period. The gross income's $21,239. Total miles, 27,055 miles. That gives an average gross of $21.24, average miles of $27.06. Multiply those by 52, and you come up with an annual estimate of $110,448, 140,712 miles, or 78.5 cents per mile. Parking is an issue out here, but mostly because of drivers, not because there's a lack of parking. Yes, there's some parts of the country where it's going to be tough to find a parking place anytime. But sometimes you've got to look, does your company have shippers or receivers that you can park at? Does your company have drop yards that you can park at? But if you do park in a truck stop, I mean, they're almost all empty in most of the country at 9 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 3 in the afternoon. These parking lots are empty. The problem is everybody wants to be a solar driver, drive the same shift and park at the same time. So the truck stops fill up 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night. As a result, it makes it difficult to find parking if you want to find parking at the same time as everyone else. And you also aren't willing to pay for it. If you know you're going to be shutting down in an area where it's tough to find parking, you go on the app and reserve a parking place. It's going to cost you $15, $17, $20, depending on where you're at in the country. But if you pay for a parking place, you know you have a place to park. The same with if you know you can go to a certain company and park at their drop yard. there are companies now that are using parking. Averett is one that I've heard of. They actually talk about the fact they have the largest parking availability for their drivers. I drove for Millis Transfer, which is now owned by Heartland Express, which also has CFI and Smith. That gives them access to a lot of terminals. So terminals might be one more thing to add to your equation when choosing a place to work. Not just terminals, but other places they have to park. Not everybody can park their truck at the house, so you have to look for a place to park. And remember, make sure you're enjoying every day at work.